Hey everyone, you Liverpool fans out there through the USA and beyond. Welcome to the 2026-27 season. So Salim and I are here tonight to give our verdict on the Reds coming into the present season. And this is going to be the first of a Thursday night series where primarily I'll be interviewing Liverpool fans from over the decades that I've supported the team. So it goes all the way back to my school days. And then some weeks I will give updates on how I see the season going for Andoni Iraola and his team. Anyway, Salim, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited. I can't believe the season's starting. Arsenal play tomorrow to get things kicked off. And I am glued to X watching the potential transfers in and out and all the stuff that's going to happen. I think we're in for an interesting, 10, 11 days here as things kind of develop. But we'll get into that a little bit later, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. I think there's going to be things, bombs being dropped here, there, and everywhere as we get into the season.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's get down to business here. Disappointing season last year, the second and the final one for Arne Slot. Coming into the new season, what are some of your broad expectations for the team?
Yeah. Well, a new season always brings new hope, I think, right? I think from a coaching standpoint, I'm really excited to go back to a pressing style of soccer that Klopp really kind of made it exciting, and Iraola has a kind of similar philosophy. So that's the first thing. I'm excited about the style of play that's going to be coming together. Obviously, this is a big season for a couple players that we spent 100 million plus on last year. So I'm very interested in seeing how Wirtz and Isak kind of combine and what kind of magic they can make happen. But overall, very, very optimistic for this season. And I'm kind of glad that last season was done. If we could say anything about last season, at least we got a Champions League spot. So we're still in the elite competition of Europe.
Yeah, just by the skin of our teeth. But hey, we're there. So I think that's all that matters. And I think the big excitement has to be the new manager. Because Arne Slot, give him credit for season one, but season two turned out to be a very long, turgid experience. And I think there is the excitement and the anticipation of a new manager, and one who hopefully is going to bring back the traditions we've had at Liverpool Football Club in my lifetime, going back to Bill Shankly and Bob Paisley, of front foot attacking football again. So Andoni Iraola, we're looking forward to it. Let's see what you can deliver with the team. So were you able to watch much of the preseason? I was in a position where I watched all the games, but you're a working man still, so
yeah. My day job is absolutely bonkers right now, but that's a good thing. But I was able to watch. I was able to watch more highlights than I was the games. I did watch the second half of the Como game, but I guess it was the first half that I should have been watching. But nonetheless, I am kind of up to speed with some of what happened in the U.S. and in the preseason matches, and I'm just excited to get rolling.
Yeah. I think, obviously, as we say time and again, we're living in the age of social media. So the way that the tour was followed by many Liverpool fans was very kind of up and down. And then we had the two games where we had 2-goal leads against Leeds, and then against the French team,
Monaco,
that's right.
Yeah.
I was kind of losing it there. And then, of course, in the second half, everything changes. And I think one thing that a lot of fans overlooked was, obviously, we were an academy-heavy team. And in the second half of both the other games, I'm not sure that the other teams, especially Leeds, really rotated. They weren't throwing on their academy kids. They were throwing on good, seasoned Premier League players, whereas we were going in the other direction. So I think it was a little over the top with a lot of the fan base, but there were also a lot of positives, and you can already start to see some of the differences between what we were served last season and what we're going to hopefully get for this season. So if you could just bear with me for a little bit, looking at who did play, I kind of, before we start evaluating the current squad, for me, having watched the games pre-season and logically the potential transfers, the outgoings for Liverpool, I think are Calvin Ramsey, Jones, Elliott, and Federico Chiesa. I think the loans, potentially Harvey Davis, Luke Chambers, Scanlon, Ndwike, McConnell, and Kieran Morrison. And then the other thing, as we look at the squad, there's still a good number of players who might be involved or could have been involved injured. So you've got Vítězslav Jarios in goal. You've got Conor Bradley, Joe Gomez, Giovanni Leone, Stefan Bajcetic, and Jayden Dan. So those are the way that I see the squad. Not that I would necessarily agree, say, with the transfers out and the potential loans.
Yeah.
But let's start off with the goalkeepers. Now, the way that I've set it up is I think we need 3 goalkeepers, and then we have a potential, academy goalkeeper if is necessary. So I think that's pretty straightforward in Alisson, Mamardashvili, and Freddie Woodman, with the backup being, if he doesn't go out on loan from the academy, Harvey Davis. So any thoughts on goalkeepers that we have for the coming season?
I mean, well, first of all, also Ekitike's out, right? So that's another one that from the forward line, and but as far as goalies go, I mean, Alisson's the guy, right? I mean, we want him to be healthy. I hope he doesn't pick up any of these little niggles he gets every now and again. Because he is still, a very good goalkeeper. Mamardashvili, when he gets his opportunities, it's going to be interesting because I think this is another key season for him as well to prove that he can be the long-term solution between the sticks. And Woodman, I think, he did pretty well when he came in last year for a couple games. So we'll see kind of how it breaks down. But I'm pretty pleased. As long as Alisson's healthy, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the fan base is a little hard on Mamardashvili. I mean, obviously his distribution is nowhere near as strong as Alisson's, but I kind of compare it. I go back to when Ray Clemence was the goalkeeper, and still for my money, he's the best goalkeeper of my lifetime supporting the Reds. And then after him came Bruce Grobbelaar. And Grobbelaar was nowhere near as good as Clemence, certainly at the start. And he struggled at first, and then he made his way in. So I feel a little bit of a similarity there, but I think time is going to tell us the tale. And so I think that we would be in agreement. We're pretty solid with our goalkeeping staff.
Yes.
Now, as we go down the positions, I think there are holes, and I'm going to identify them as we go along, and maybe you can chime in with some of your thoughts. So fullbacks, I think we need 4 fullbacks. Jeremy Frimpong, we have a hole maybe as a backup for him. Kerkez, Tsimikas, with the player out of the academy who's kind of fell by the wayside since that infamous Plymouth game, but he's still only 21, and I know he was highly rated by Jurgen Klopp, is a right back called Isak Maibaya. I think that's how you pronounce it. But anyway, so thoughts on fullbacks.
Yeah, Coach, I think it's no secret here. The right back position, that's going to be the biggest hole, I think. Frimpong, had a great game against against Como. He played well. That was great to see. But, he's been picking up injuries too. So as long as he stays healthy, it'll be good. But there is a hole there. That's the area that I'm concerned about. And I'm hoping that maybe something happens here in the transfer market. But as far as kind of all the news that are kind of going around, there's not really any attention that's being put there. So maybe Mabaya is the guy that they're going to insert as a backup.
Yeah, I mean, for me, fullbacks is where Liverpool are weakest with the squad. Obviously, with Frimpong, it's been widely pointed out that he's more of a wing back than a fullback. Kerkez is starting to look better going forward, which was where his big strength was when he played for Bournemouth. And I suppose we have the hope that he's playing now for a manager where he was good enough to be in the Premier League team of the season. Tsimikas, for me, is a good deputy. Again, the fan base are really tough on him. I think he's a decent backup. And actually, I have a feeling he might be a better crosser of the ball than Kerkez, but he doesn't have Kerkez's dynamism going forward. The things that I worry about are Frimpong and Kerkez are both small. And okay, football's always been a game where it doesn't matter what size you are, but you look at the way that the game is played and the way it's developed. There's very few small defenders now. Height is a key thing. And another thing that I wondered about was whether it would be worth. I think Calvin Ramsey is going out on loan to St Mirren in Scotland.
Yep.
I wondered whether it would be worth keeping him until Christmas. I think he looks okay whenever I've seen him play. But one thing that may go against him, maybe the manager doesn't feel he's quite at the level. Clearly, Slot didn't, even though he kept putting him on the bench. But he doesn't count as a homegrown player. And I know that Liverpool are having issues in that department. Yeah. That's just the thought that I had. And as I say, I feel that this is Liverpool's weakest part of the squad, the fullbacks. Central defenders we were getting very concerned about. But maybe things are looking a little more optimistic now, would you say?
100%, I would say that. Leone's going to be coming back here in the next month and a half. So that gives you Van Dijk, Jacquet, who was excellent against Como in the first half. I know I said I didn't watch it, but I watched those highlights, and then I watched specifically highlights of Jacquet in the first half, and he was very good. So I feel good about that. I think Araujo was a great piece of business on a loan to fill a spot. The guy has Champions League experience. He's played for Barcelona. I think he's going to come in pretty handy. And then Leone, when he comes back, it looks like, it feels pretty good as far as the four center halves there.
Yeah. So you've highlighted them all, and I suppose there's a little bit of a hole while Leone and Gomez are injured, but I think there's enough to keep the Reds going. And I guess the academy player that would be next in line would be NDI, who actually I thought did well. I thought he did well on the preseason tour, although he was a little bit overshadowed by Ndukwe, who obviously cannot play this year, but he looks like a potential player of the future. So I feel that in the course of a week, things have turned around with the central defense. And I guess the only question with the first game is, who do you start? Do they play the whole game, or do you timeshare? And I guess we'll see that when the game rolls around.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one area where I do feel that we have holes is in midfield, because I think we need 7. And according to my calculations, and I'm not including Florian Wirtz as a midfielder, we can maybe talk about him a little bit later, but sure. You've got Szoboszlai, you've got Gravenberg, you've got McAllister. Leone, as everybody's pointed out, had a great tour and looks ready to step up. And then you've got Endo coming back from injury, another player that I feel that the fan base is harsh on, but I think he's a very good squad player and he's versatile. So that is 5 midfielders, and we're maybe short of a couple here. It doesn't appear it's a priority for the recruitment right now, but if we were to go beyond that, I think the first in line from the academy, and again, it's another player that could be loaned, is James McConnell, who I think had a good solid tour as well, and obviously played under Jurgen Klopp. So thoughts on our midfield department, Salim?
Yeah, I think McConnell is going to stay from what I've been reading, but yeah, Curtis Jones obviously is I think probably as we speak doing his medical in Milan. So he's gone, and there's been some rumors of Adam Wharton coming potentially in, but you kind of start doing the math. And it's like, how are they going to do all this, especially from a financial standpoint? Obviously, there's Barcola, and I'm sure we'll talk about those things a little bit later. But as far as a starting or a rotating double pivot, the fact that Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, McAllister are the ones that will be the ones kind of rotating between those two positions, I feel good about that. They've been at the club for a while. They know they've played the double pivot. So I like that. And I like Nioni's going to get a chance. I think he's going to eat up Curtis Jones' minutes, which I like. Endo, you mentioned that. So yeah, it would be great to find another midfielder there, especially, it's a long season, the style of play that Iraola has, high press, a lot of energy. So there's going to be some spots to rest some of these guys. But generally speaking, I'm a little more optimistic, I think, than you are about this.
Yeah. For me, I think it's just because of the numbers game. And I think you've hit on the reason why, which is the number of games, style of play. And so, okay, as I say, I don't count Wirtz as a midfielder per se, especially in a system which is, playing with the double pivot. But anyway, I feel that they could certainly do with one more body, but it doesn't seem to be a priority right now. So moving from the midfield to the forwards, forwards, attacking players, call them what you will.
Sure.
You need 7. So in that department, I've got Isak, Wirtz, Muniz, Gakpo, and Gamoa, and then I think one young player that did very, very well, and I feel, or I get a sense, might suit the style of play is Lewis Kumas. So there's still a gap with Ekatike out and Jaden Dans. So I guess the academy, the next one to step up would be Will Wright. But anyway, that would be our attacking course. So thoughts on our attacking possibilities?
Yeah, the reality here is, this team is going to go as far as Isak and Wirtz, kind of pull them in that direction. I really believe that. And I mentioned earlier, this is a big season for them. I really like Munoz. I think when he comes in at the 60, 70-minute mark, he's explosive. He's extremely fast. He's going to create havoc. So I like that. Gakpo's Gakpo. There's rumors potentially him leaving. But, I think it's very clear that this is an area that FSG and Liverpool hierarchy are targeting. Barcola has been in the news now for months. And when you look at PSG's squad, they have 6 attackers. They've added 2. So him and Mbaye are the guys that are potentially on the outside looking in. If we get one, potentially both, I think we'll be okay. But Barcola seems to be the name here that I think would turn our minds around a little bit about where this attacking core is.
Right. Yeah. So some of the talking points for me is Gakpo, like many Liverpool players last season, didn't have a great year. He's actually looked very good during the preseason, and I think maybe he got a little bit of confidence playing in the World Cup. He had a decent World Cup, and maybe the reason that it's rumored he wants to move on was because he did take a hammering during the last season. So I feel a bit bad for him, but obviously, if a player of Barcola's caliber is signed, then maybe the writing's on the wall for him. Engamoa, I find interesting as well. I mean, like, he was a surprise last year because I watched him a lot when he had his first season at Anfield, and obviously was playing with the academy teams. And I thought he was a player that was maybe prone to one too many step over, and there wasn't always an end product. And I think he took it up a notch, obviously, and he did contribute. I think he could have played more last year,
I agree.
Which I know is shared by many fans.
Yeah.
And looking at him no longer term, some of the things that concern me, and actually it's an issue with all these wide forwards, wingers, call them what you will, is they're getting very typecast. And you can even say this with Barcola. I mean, he likes to play off the left, but he's right-footed. So why does he like to play off the left? Because he can come inside and score. Okay, I think that's fine. So whatever happened to players that could play on the outside, go on the outside, and then set up players like a centre forward, like Alexander Isak.
Yep.
Okay, Liverpool haven't had a player like that for a while, but he needs service. And so why are these wide forwards, wide wingers, call them what you will, why are they getting typecast in such a way? So it's, people are starting to make a big deal as, okay, Engamoa, he's on the right side, but he's not as good as he is on the left side. I think they've got to play on both sides. And I hear down the grapevine that that's similar to what the manager thinks. Like sometimes they have to be the provider, sometimes they have to be the goal scorer.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be very interested to see with Engamoa in particular how he develops, whether he's on the right side of the field or he's on the left side of the field. But anyway, that is the squad as we see it right now. And it's very, very clear there's maybe as many as 5 gaps in the squad, five question marks to be answered. So Richard Hughes, and I think we've kind of hinted at this, seems very preoccupied with the big money signing. And I think that this has been kind of a characteristic of his time as director of soccer and recruitment. So there's Barcola and there's Mbaye, obviously big money signings if they come in. And obviously different position, but I mentioned Calvin Ramsey earlier. Maybe it's worth keeping him Christmas. And I think Harvey Elliott might be a similar player that it might be worth keeping until at least Christmas time. He struggled in pre-season and feel very, very badly for him, having seen what he's gone through in the past 12 months.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, Richard Hughes is preoccupied with the big money signings. So thoughts on how do Liverpool kind of plug up some of these gaps if the guy that's signing the players is thinking, right, I want the big money guy?
Well, that's Iraola's job, right? And how is he going to do that? One thing we know about Iraola is, when you look at his tenure at Bournemouth, he lost 3/4 of his defense last year, right? Or the year prior. And they had their best season ever. He lost Antoine Semenyo. They still went ahead and played really well when Semenyo left in January for Man City. I think, when you think about plugging gaps, I'm not really sure. I feel very bad for Harvey Elliott as well. I really was hoping that he would come back from his awful time at Aston Villa, but it just seems like his confidence is shot. And I don't know if that's something that can be revived under Iraola or not, but I think he would be a big piece to this. And then you got Endo and Gomez, right, that can kind of, get in there and play several different positions. Endo can play in the double pivot. He can play in defense. Gomez, for the love of God, if he can stay healthy, he can play on the right. He can play in the middle. So it's, we'll see what happens. And that's what kind of makes the season so exciting for me, is just to see how Iraola is going to manage this, because he has experience managing these things at Bournemouth.
Right. I think you've highlighted a characteristic which Iraola has shown at both his previous clubs, Bournemouth and Rayo Vallecano down in Spain, which is he's very resourceful. And that's something that I thought was a weakness of Arne Slot. I always felt with him, it had to be perfect. And if it wasn't perfect, then, things became tough. So, I think he is going to have to rely on that, particularly during this first season, because there are holes that need to be plugged. And one of the things that I think's interesting is a year ago, Liverpool spent big bucks. And if you look at the two lads at the top of the list, you've got Alexander Isak, you've got Florian Wirtz. And clearly with Isak, he is an out-and-out centre-forward and a striker. Florian Wirtz, I believe, likes to play as a number 10, although he's been used in other roles, again, primarily coming off the left. I don't see him as a midfielder, personally. I noted that earlier. And I feel that if you're going to rely on him there, he can certainly run around and he can pressure, but he's not physical enough. He doesn't have that physical dimension.
Yeah.
That I think playing in the Premier League requires, if you're going to be playing back in defence, then forward in attack. And I think he has to be given license to, as I say, to float around, play his natural game. You can see in some of these preseason games, he has the ability, these deft little touches and turns to create. So we spent a lot of money on him, and I think that that's really what you've got to set up the majority of times when he's in the team, because he does have intangibles to his game, and he brings that to the team, and it makes the team stronger. Now, there are transfer rumours. We've kind of hinted at that with Cody Gakpo. And it's said that he's interested in moving down to London to play for Tottenham.
Well, something interesting just happened about a half hour ago.
Yes?
Yeah, so Savinho, it was agreed with Manchester City to move to Tottenham, and it's upwards of above £75 million, which is good news for us if Gakpo wants to move to London and to Tottenham, because now we have a framework of we have a baseline of what we could potentially get for him. So that's going to be interesting to see how that boils down. And the McAllister thing has been really, really interesting. The fact that nobody kind of has gone after him this year, there's zero rumors. And also, he kind of pledged his allegiance to Liverpool this summer, or through his father, who was his agent, did. So, Adam Wharton, a couple of years ago, somebody mentioned him to me, and I was like, come on, but he's definitely developed really well at Crystal Palace. I just don't know how they can. I don't think they're ready to let him go. So, very interesting stuff, but I think there's going to be a lot of, you mentioned bombs earlier, and I think there's still a couple that are going to happen that are going to turn our heads a little bit.
Could be. Coming back to Gakpo and McAllister, I think they're two players that maybe sensed the criticism that they got last year from the fan base. And maybe some of it was unjustified, because the team generally, just maybe apart from Szoboszlai, had a down year. And the feeling is that McAllister wants to move, but you're right, his father's kind of committed, certainly for the short term, to Anfield. And Adam Wharton has certain ingredients to his play. And I think that for the Iraola style, it's because he can play the through ball, the progressive pass, as they call it.
Yeah.
Question marks about his physicality, though. But I think it's too late in the transfer window for a move like that to take place, especially with Hughes being so focused on the PSG players. It's just way too late in the transfer window. So I think you would agree with me that if you look at the squad overall, it's a good squad, but it's short-handed. And if it's a short-handed squad, how legitimate is it for Liverpool to chase 4 trophies this year? I think that's going to be a pretty tall order.
Agreed.
And,
yeah, agreed.
You know, maybe he's got to sacrifice the domestic cups, which of course won't please the fan base. But yeah, unless something truly dramatic happens, I think he's going to have to sacrifice the League Cup, the FA Cup, get his style of play down, and then take it with a favoured squad of players, which isn't the biggest in the world.
Yeah. You know, I was reading something that said, "Hey, what is a successful season?" And I'm pretty sure we'll probably get into that here just shortly. But some pundits are saying that, you know, winning a domestic cup and finishing in the Champions League spots would be a successful season. But, you know, as you just kind of laid it out, like how is that going to happen? Because the style of play, the amount of games, something's got to give. And, you know, God forbid another injury or something happens, then we're really shorthanded. So, you know, I agree with you, Coach. I think you nailed it.
So let's play devil's advocate here. Liverpool do sign Bradley Barcola. What kind of a difference do you think that makes to the team?
Well, I think it's another piece. And that also, you know, does that mean Gakpo goes? Because if that's just one in, one out, that's not going to do it. But if he stays, I think it does give us an extra element. But man, I think we need probably 2, maybe 3 to like really be able to feel that they can compete in the domestic cups as well as the, you know, the rigors of the Champions League and the Premier League. But I don't know if that's going to happen.
Right. I mean, but Gakpo, I know on a slot tried it last year as a backup to Isak.
Yeah, he's valuable in that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, because you have this whole, which is who is really going to back up Alexander Isak?
Yep.
He's injury prone. He goes down, you know, he picks up a knock, even if it's not a small one, but he's out for a game or two. Who plays as centre forward? So,
yep.
So certainly in terms of his physical size and everything, Gakpo looks like he should be able to do it. And the last couple of games, he's done very, very well. As I say, he seems to have got some of his confidence back after the World Cup. And I can't really see any other changes, really, or players that can back up Isak up front. I mean, it was a big hope that we had Jadon Danns, but he's injured all the time. And I don't think we can count on that, really.
And Gakpo's not injured. He's pretty durable. Say what you want about him, but he's there. He's on the field.
Right. So looking at the squad, we've kind of highlighted that we're a bit short of numbers. Any other weaknesses that you see, you know, in terms of personnel or anything like that?
Yeah, I think we touched on it earlier. Right back scares me. For sure scares me. I think Frimpong picked up 4 different muscle injuries last year. If he goes down, is Araujo supposed to play there? I don't know what the solution is there. So that area specifically is scary to me. 100%. That one piece really scares me.
Yeah. Now to come back, something that I talked about earlier in the pod, which was for me the biggest weakness are the fullbacks. One thing that I wondered about was whether a 3-5-2 setup would actually suit the personnel better.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, I'm not the manager, but I just look at it that if you place Kerkez and Frimpong higher up the field, all of a sudden now you've got 3 decent central defenders. You've got Leone coming back, hopefully Gomez. So you've got core cover.
Yeah.
You've also got Endo, who played in the last game, who can play at the back, as you say. He can play in the double pivot. And I just wonder about that. I mean, because for many years as well, if you look at the strikers, there's been this thing about playing with a single striker, maybe with the two wide forwards or with players behind the striker. And I just wonder whether, and I've seen others speculate about this, playing with two strikers again. Could that ever come back into fashion?
Mm-hmm.
And watching Gakpo play at the weekend, where he actually seemed to be playing in more of what in older terms we would call inside left. He was more inside than he was under Slot, where he was kind of hugging the line all the time.
Yeah. Yep.
Getting him closer to Isak, that's starting to look a little bit like they could play as two forwards. I know they've talked about Wirtz being the other forward as well, but I feel Wirtz needs to be floating, rather than play. He can still play with the centre forward, but he plays in a different way than if you've got two strikers playing up there together.
He's a supplier. He's not going to be the one, with back to goal. Like, you mentioned his physicality or lack thereof, and that's going to be a problem if he's a forward up there running against, the big center halves of the Premier League and how aggressive and physical they are. So, yeah, he absolutely has to be a floater, has to find the pockets, has to be the supplier. He's a very, very good player. But that, I don't think he can't be a forward, but I think it's interesting that you mentioned Gakpo kind of playing an inside left, because maybe now when Kirkes comes around on the overlap, maybe he'll be able to give him the ball. Right. So, and get in the box and try to wreak havoc with Isak there. So, I know we give Gakpo, a hard time, but, he's been a good pro. He's like I said, availability is so critical. And he's there, and hey, I hope he has a great season, and maybe the 3-5-2 is the way to go. I feel really, really strongly about our center halves. I really feel like we are set up for long-term success. They're big, they're physical. Araujo, I think it was a stroke of genius, which we'll see kind of, I think, a little bit further down the road.
Right. And like you've got the big lad Ndukwe, who can't play this year, but if he was eligible this year, he would definitely be first team squad. So I think Liverpool's future in that department, even though this is probably Virgil's last season, I think there's players there for sure. So look, we've talked about a lot of different aspects coming into the season. What do you think are reasonable expectations for 26, 27 for Liverpool fans out there?
Okay, reasonable expectations. I think top 4. I think it is reasonable. I think this season, the top 6 teams are going to be a dogfight between all of them. United, is kind of on the rise. They had a pretty good season last year, but now they have to play Champions League also. So how is that going to impact their form? Tottenham has made big splashes with signings all over the place. And it doesn't look like they're done. So they're going to be, I think, a lot better. Chelsea, under the tutelage of Alonso, I think are going to be a lot better. And then you got the teams like Bournemouth and Brighton that just punch well above their weight all the time. So, I think top 4 is a reasonable expectation. I think from an unreasonable expectation, they could be in the mix, I think, until March, maybe beginning of April. And I think at that point, I think our legs might go a little bit and we might fade a little bit back into 4th spot.
Right. Well, I would have to agree with you. I think top 4 is the aim. One thing that I'm interested to see is quite a lot of the pundits are writing Liverpool off. And they're even talking about Tottenham. And Chelsea, who actually are in the situation in Manchester United last year, they don't have European football.
Neither does Tottenham.
Right, Chelsea and Tottenham. So that might be advantageous for them. And I think whilst Chelsea has to sort out one major problem, which is having 41 senior players. So yeah, I don't know how you quite handle that one, but I think I think that Alonso is a good manager. You know, he showed that in Germany. I think Liverpool are being written off a little bit, and I think that kind of helps to some degree because maybe there's not quite such intensity of pressure, although there's always going to be fans who, if we're not chasing trophies on all four fronts, it's the end of the world. But
right.
But yeah, I think top four, if we can get a trophy as well, I mean, like that would be awesome, but I wouldn't count on it personally.
Yeah.
So I think there's exciting prospects, and I think part of it has to do with the move back to a more adventurous style of play. If the Reds get in a position where they're doing well in the league and they're challenging in Europe, for example, then that's an extra added bonus, as it were. But anyway, I think there's much to look forward to this season. I know that every year people get optimistic at the start of the season, and I see no reason why we as Liverpool fans shouldn't get optimistic either. So I think a good note to end on, perhaps, Salim.
Yeah, sounds good. And here we go.
Yeah. So just to let everybody know that Salim will be on after the Newcastle game this weekend, Sunday afternoon. I believe it's getting played back in the UK, 4:30 kickoff in the UK. So he will be on after the game to give you his thoughts. Sadly, I'm on vacation down in South America, and bad planning on my part. I'm traveling while the game is on, so I'll probably do a follow-up on Monday, and then next Thursday I'll be back with Salim. Over the summer, I recorded the first of a coming season that we have of LFC fan interviews. So I thought it was logical I should start with my partner, and so we'll be talking about his life as a Red, following Liverpool Football Club. And another thing that I have to throw in as well is Salim on Sunday will be giving information for our fantasy football league set up for the coming year.
Yes.
So other than that, if you could subscribe to the channel, let's get some support in. So like the video and look for us, as I say, after the games. And every Thursday I'll be doing a show with other Liverpool fans and giving my own thoughts on the season. So, Salim, I won't see you on Sunday, but fingers crossed we have a good game.
Yeah, that's the hope. Yes, sir.
Okay, so to everybody out there, you'll never walk alone, and we will see you at the weekend. So goodbye now.
Take care, everybody.